Available now to rent digitally is a documentary from this year entitled Other Music, and it is about a renowned New York City record store that is no longer with us, entitled Other Music. And Other Music was a place that I had vaguely heard of, but not being from the city, I didn't know too much about them. So this documentary filled me in. It basically gives you the history of this record store that was known for having extremely eclectic music for sale, things that you couldn't get hardly anywhere else, things that only maybe 100 copies were made of. And they were real big proponents and cheerleaders for independent artists and obscure artists and outsider music and things like that. So basically you get the history of the store, and then it traces, the film was shot, I think, because the place was closing down after 20 or so years. And it talks about how the impact of that closure is felt by the community. It talks about how, interestingly, they were across the street from Tower Records in New York, and they held their own against Tower Records in New York. And they would have various musicians who went on to some renown perform in their store before they were known. They'd have these little gigs where everybody would basically stand around the amps on the floor and watch the bands play. And it also sort of touches just on the perilous fate of retail. Now more than ever, the perilous fate of record stores. Being a major fan of record stores and music and collecting records, I'll watch a documentary about any record store. So this was, as I said, this was very interesting to me. I think probably resonates more if you were a fan of the store itself, if you'd been there, or if you were a fan of the musicians that are discussed in this film. Now, one of the interesting things about this record store was that everybody who worked there was kind of an expert at something. And basically they would find you in the record store and say, what do you like? Well, here, try this thing you've never heard of. Which is interesting, because I think some people go into a record store not necessarily looking for music they don't know, they're looking for something they like. So that approach was interesting to me. Just seeing how a record store operates, how a renowned record store, not very large, but how a renowned record store operates and manages to survive as long as they did, to me was interesting. Now, if I wanted to be cruel, I would say it's a documentary about a place I've never been to, can't ever go to, about music I don't like and I've never heard of. So it all depends on your style and your taste for having your horizons expanded. If you're into the sort of music that they talk about in this, I think it'll be a lot more rewarding than it was for me. I was reminded of the Ken Burns baseball documentary that I saw when it was new, and I'm not a major fan of baseball. I've been to games, I know what it is. But I watched the first half hour or so, and after a while I turned it off because it was nothing but just names, dates, and statistics, and it didn't mean anything to me. I got a little of that vibe with Other Music, not the fall of the film at all, or the record store, but my own just knowledge and taste was not about this. So when they keep talking about bands I've never heard of and saying they're great, I'm like, okay, that's fine. But I couldn't relate to it. What I could relate to was the joy of a retail space where the people really care about what they're selling. People really know about what they're selling. I was very lucky to have a video store like that for many years, and I shed a gentle tear for its demise every day in one way or another. So I understand what the people were feeling like. You see the customers who loved this place for decades coming in and saying their last farewells, and the sad moment where, sadly comedic, darkly comedic, I don't know what, where they're sweeping up the floor after they've pulled all the shelves out. The place is closed, and somebody walks up and says, "Are you moving? Are you remodeling?" And they're informed, "No, we're done." So I thought it was very interesting. If you're a fan of music and record stores, and especially if you've been to Other Music, I think this film is worth a look. This is available as a digital rental right now. So if you search online Other Music documentary, you can rent it. The way I rented it, I believe it's a digital rental virtual cinema, which a lot of movie theaters offer. I believe you can choose to support a record store, bookstore, theater with your rental of this film, like is often going on right now, where a portion of the money you spend goes to another entity. Could be wrong on that. I've been watching a lot of things lately, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. So at any rate, if you do a search online, it is the documentary about Other Music.